I want to say thank you for joining us this evening and participating in tonight's CMO Roundtable discussion. First, a big thanks to Mark Nardoni and his marketing team for putting together the terrific moderator I'm about to introduce and all of our panelists. So before we get started, I'll say thank you to all of the panelists for giving us your time tonight, and Lori in particular for moderating tonight's discussion. So let me tell you about Lori Wisdo. As you know from the invitation, Lori is an analyst with Forrester Research, has been a friend and of Pan's for many years, and has focused her career in the marketing B2B space. So as she was talking with Mark about a topic for this roundtable, it was very clear that everything that's going on in the marketing space needed to be discussed in a forum like this, and with panelists that could add a different point of view to tonight's discussion. So with that, I'll turn it over to Lori to spend a couple of minutes talking about each of our distinguished panelists and then get things going. So thank you, Lori.
Thanks very much, Phil. Hi, everybody. So the topic we've picked tonight, this topic of digital disruption, is really, it's a pretty broad topic. I mean, it packs everything about our companies, our products, how we deliver our products, our delivery models. But what we wanted to focus on today really was how does it affect what we do in marketing, in terms of how we engage our clients and our customers, in terms of how we communicate, in terms of how we just manage our business. And so I'm really excited about the panel we have gathered together tonight. All right, so let me introduce the panel. We have Jeff Busbang. Jeff is a general partner at Flybridge Capital Partners, and that's an early stage venture capital firm that's here in Boston. So, but before Jeff started it, about in 2003, he was an entrepreneur. And 10 years, 3 different management teams with 3 different tech startup companies, 2 of which had a successful exit.
Yeah.
All
3 had successful exits.
All 3?
2
okay.
were more
successful
some are
than
more
others.
publicly successful.
More successful than others. I can only find documentary evidence of 2 successful exits. So I didn't want to go out on the limb there. And then he started the VC firm, so he's really been on both sides of this technology innovation dynamic, and which is why he has written a book about it, managing it's
Mastering the VC game.
Mastering the VC game, and writes a blog called Seeing Both Sides. So we thought I was really excited that he could be part of the panel tonight, so he can bring both sides of that vision to the dialogue today. And then John Dragoon, and John is another interesting panelist tonight, because John is now the CMO, EVP and CMO for Houghton Mifflin Harcourt. How many of you know that company have never said it out loud?
Now, for the first time, know how to say it. That's awesome.
I mean, it's
part of our stealth marketing program.
It's a 150-year-old company, and we all know the company, but I realized I'd never said that word in my life. So, but John's been there about a year and a couple months, but has a long career in the technology industry as well. So he spent about 7 years with Novell,
Yep.
And then also has senior positions with ATG, Internet Commerce Group, IBM. Big technologist, sits on the board of the Massachusetts Technology Leadership Council, Open Innovation Network, Union Street Brand Packaging, which I don't know what that is. Okay, all right. But what I think is really interesting about the perspective that John's going to bring is, after having a long career in B2B tech marketing, to have the perspective of, really more of a consumer, non-technical. Of course, maybe it is getting more technical, more digital. I noticed when I was looking at the website that there was a big feature on how social networking has a place in our grade schools, in our high schools, as an education medium. So there's a whole lot of, again, talking about our products being disrupted. So thanks for joining the panel. And then Mark Organ, who is sitting right beside me. Now, Mark is co-founder of a company called, and CEO currently of a company called Influitive, and they're doing some really cool things with helping companies really tap into their customers and the social tendencies we all have to really empower those customers to be advocates, which can help bring new leads into the company, can help accelerate sales cycles, a very innovative use of social technology, really bringing it right into the B2B space. But not the first thing that Mark has done in the B2B space. Some of you may know the name. Mark is the founder of Eloqua and the CEO for the first 9 years. 7 years, 9 years.
7 years.
And so basically, Mark is the father of B2B marketing automation, and we are lucky enough to have him here with us tonight. So hopefully the insight will be astounding. So I'm very happy. Thank you for all of you for joining the panel tonight. I wanted to start out with a kind of a basic question, and what I'm going to do here is have just lay the questions out, get some feedback from these guys, and then at this point, we're not going to wait till the end to ask questions. I'll break at a reasonable time and to see if you guys have any questions. We're going to go through a number of different topics as we progress through the night. But the first one's actually, it's kind of interesting. We're hearing more and more. It's kind of a marketing urban legend that buyers are 90% of the way through their buying cycle before they talk to a salesperson, or 60% or 50%. It's not really true. I mean, for certain products, they're 90% of the way through, and all they want is to get a price quote from a vendor. And for certain products, they don't know how to buy, and they're only 10% of the way through. But regardless, the way that we have to engage as marketers with our clients, with our customers, has changed. We're engaged earlier. We're more a part of their actual buying processes. And I know I see, and I know you guys also are dealing with yourselves, and you're seeing a lot of customers. How well do you think, Mark, that the marketers you're talking to are dealing with this?
Are dealing with.
Just the idea, the different engagement model, getting more digital, getting more social, getting more engaging and less publishing them.
I think they're struggling with it. You know, I see a lot of trying different tactics, and you know, without a lot of tracking or testing, particularly in the B2B space. Like, I think that's one area where the B2C marketers actually have a few years of experience over the B2B marketers. For example, one of the things I've done in my company is actually acqui-hired a social gaming company just for the DNA, just to bring in that constant testing and experimentation, and a more integrated approach too, you know, to marketing that you typically will see on the, you know, on the consumer side. So I think that there's a lot of work to be done in terms of a couple of things. First, you know, constant experimentation, tracking, testing, analytics on that, and then creating a more holistic approach. Whereas I just see it seems like every year there's another fad. I mean, now it's content marketing is really big, right? And everybody is, you know, arming up and hiring journalists and whatnot. And next year it'll be something else. But I'm not yet seeing that kind of coordinated approach.
Let me ask a question of the audience. Just raise your hand if you, were you a marketeer before there was an internet? Thank God. Okay. So there are some still out there.
Does door-to-door salesman count?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So one of my colleagues talks about the fact that just with the door-to-door salesman, you know, the channels we need to sell and market through are changing. I mean, there was a time when people sold vacuum cleaners door to door, and now that doesn't need to happen anymore. So, John, what differences did you see when you went to more of a company with more of a consumer bent? And is that
Well, I'm
even
not
true?
sure
Is there kind of a...
it's not necessarily what a consumer bent. The thing interesting about Houghton Mifflin Harcourt is they described themselves when I got there 14 months ago as a textbook company, which is a little bit like being in the railroad business versus the transportation business. I quickly would challenge them. No, you're in the learning industry, and you deliver value through content and media. So you're a content and media company. And so the same digital disruption that is talked about in education parallels the marketing digital disruption and how we talk about it. And it's fashionable to talk, and Jeff and I were chatting earlier about the conversation in education is around digital disruption, but the implementation is still very physical. And so it turns out that the 55 million students who learn in the US learn in multiple modalities from physical to digital, and it's a dimmer switch in between those modalities. And it's the same paradigm I would suggest in marketing. It's very fashionable to talk about digital marketing and marketing automation, all of which I firmly believe in, but you know, we still do a lot of analog things in marketing as well, and they're still just as important. So I see quite a bit of parallels, frankly, between the way our customers are consuming our content and the way we're trying to market that content to them.
Do you think there's a mindset change that marketers need to have to think about engaging more versus publishing more?
Engaging versus publishing. I do think that, and we've had this shift for some time, that customers are increasingly less concerned or not as concerned about the products they buy, but the companies that they buy those products from. And so that's a different engagement model. It says it's not just about selling features and functions, but about the trust, confidence, integrity, authenticity around which one markets. you can do that really well in digital environment, or you can do that really poorly, and the results will happen very quickly in either case. And it's something to watch, I think.
Mark, is that where advocates can come in?
Yeah, I agree. I was just gonna say, reacting to that. I mean, I think engagement is everything now. It's everything. It's so important. I was just at a little VC thing with we had 20 CEOs around the table talking about our biggest challenges, and 18 out of 20, the biggest challenge was how do we engage our prospects? How do we engage our customers, our users? It wasn't about technology. It wasn't about trying to figure out the latest algorithm. It wasn't about trying to, even so much, hiring developers or whatever. It's like, how do we engage these days? What are the right processes and metrics and approaches for that? And I think it's something that in the B2B technology space, it's not something we have a lot of experience in, including ourselves. We're learning all the time, and it's especially important in our business because we are trying to help our customers engage their advocates to get them to do a lot more activity. So trying to understand what it is that does engage people, what drives them to go and do more activity is really important. And in many cases, it's soft factors. It's recognition. It's social capital. It's to be able to meet other people. And I think for a lot of marketers, it really is a new world. And I think it's a world a lot of marketers have to master. I think the whole customer experience, user experience world, where design and testing are coming together. I think it's something that you're going to see the best marketers are going to master that, and the ones that can't figure it out are probably going to find something else to do in the next few years.
Okay, I'll just throw in on that. It's interesting for me as a investor because I see a lot of activity across a portfolio of companies. Flybridge is about 70 portfolio companies, mostly in the Boston, New York area. And one of the things I always observe is how titles have changed in marketing departments.
Yeah.
So Mark talked a lot about engagement. So you see titles now of community manager in marketing departments,
right,
or engagement manager, or social media marketing manager. People are less interested in product marketing executives. They're more interested in community executives.
Yep.
And so, in some of our organizations, people say, you know what, there really is no marketing organization at all. It's the product group, and then the community group. And so we're going to build a great product, and then we're going to have a community group that's going to evangelize that product and engage with the community.
Yeah, that's true.
So there's you sort of look at the titles of marketing departments, you're really seeing the fingerprints of some of these changes.
Well, I hope I don't see a former CMO title. I'll give Mark a call.
What do you guys in your portfolio companies? What is the biggest challenge for marketers, do you think, to become more of engagement oriented and to quit thinking about our products and our services, start thinking about our customers and their needs? I mean, these are some mindset changes.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
Where do you start with that? They don't have the right people or the right skills or metrics or processes in many cases. I mean, especially in B2B technology. So like the Ritz-Carlton knows a lot about this, and Disney knows a lot about it, about how to engage people, because that's been their business for decades. But in the software space, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I mean, I'm learning more every day, and so are my people. So are my customers are learning all the time about what it means to engage people.
how many people in the audience work for a technology company? And how many people don't work for a B2B company?
Good.
Okay. So one question I have is, do you
So
think
everybody here works for a B2B company? That's interesting. It's fascinating.
The one question I have, and I wonder about, and interested in your guys' opinion, is are marketers kind of held back by the industries, technology industries, and John, you may have a real long-standing opinion on this, have been very direct sales centric. It's been, Jeff, you talked about there's product and there's the community. It has been, there's product and there's sales, and marketing has been this in-between service organization that never could find its own feet in a way.
Yeah.
And so I wonder how much that of a cultural barrier that is, and maybe some ways to get around that. Do you think that?
Go ahead, Jeff.
It's a huge issue. So again, just looking across our portfolio, so the classic enterprise sales model is dead. So when I was an entrepreneur, I was an executive at a company called Open Market, internet commerce software company in the mid-90s. And when we wanted to increase revenue every quarter, it was all about increasing quota-carrying sales folks distributed in the field. The marketing organization, I was the head of marketing at the time, would support that sales team with product marketing and sales tools and everything else and sales training. And we'd just sort of run the engine, more dollars into the sales force, more dollars would come out in quota, and we hope that we have a efficient cost of sale. That model is totally different now. The model now is what I'll call selling 2.0, which is very focused on inbound, which is why content marketing is so critical. Very focused on what I'll call developer-driven business models, which are the development community, third-party community. You try to become a platform, and you get the development community to propagate what you're doing. Very focused on telesales, machine, the Eloqua sort of lead nurturing through lead management work. And where we see great investment opportunities, in other words, where we see companies that are really getting traction, are companies where they're not hiring a single enterprise salesperson. It's all through those other mechanisms, what I'll again call sales 2.0. And that's the model. And so the marketing organization needs to now support that. And they need to support it with great content marketing and great developer relations and great community building, as opposed to sales tools for an enterprise sales force.
Do you think the marketers who actually even have adopted that are still leaning too much toward we can do it through content rather than community or people? Because I still, the clients I speak with usually are when they're adopting the content strategy and they recognize they need to do more engagement, but still they're hesitating to, it's sales, inside sales that talks to customers. And so the community dynamic that you talked about, I think, is an interesting way of getting over that, around that.
Yeah, no, I think that's critical. Again, content's really important, but everyone's writing better content now. Like Eloqua, Marketo, each of them have like 10 journalists on staff. HubSpot's got like 30 or something like that, right? People that just write content all day long. So how do you cut through the noise in that kind of environment, right? So I think that's where the community really helps. Our view is we take kind of an activist view on it, so not rather be passive and hope for the community interactions to somehow drive a faster buying process. I think it's possible to mobilize the community and direct them in the right way to go and win more sales. I think it's dangerous for companies to rely entirely on inbound because you lose control of your destiny, right? There has to be a way to go and win the right kind of customers that are going to generate the most possible value for themselves and for you. So if all you do is just write content and just hope and pray that all the right people are going to read it and then are going to fill out your lead form, I think that's a big mistake. I think great companies have always been built by understanding who the best possible customers are and making sure that there's a system for attracting them to your company and winning them, getting a huge return for them, getting huge customer surplus, and using them to drive that extra customer surplus is used to build advocacy, right? Which is a much more efficient way to grow your business than by hiring people. No, sorry.
Well, I guess I'm somewhere in between both of you on this. We just
I think you're
relaunched.
square in the middle.
We just relaunched a website on behalf of 3 dimensions that we were trying to appeal to our target audiences around this paradigm of content, community, and commerce. And we try to appeal, if you think about the buying cycle and decision of who actually buys textbooks, the people who make those decisions, textbooks or digital content, are different than the people who actually use them, which are 5 to 17-year-olds in public school systems. So we think of our market audience as administrators, teachers, parents, students, and lifelong learners, all very different roles in the buying cycle, by the way, from influence to utilization to decision making. And the content, community, commerce dial on our website is dialed specifically up or down based on the audiences we're trying to appeal to. So for a parent's perspective, there's a little bit of content and a little bit of community on behalf of parents who want to talk to other parents about what does the Common Core state standards that are evolving mean to my child's education and how can I help them? So that's a content conversation. You're really not trying to sell a lot to a parent who's not going to be making a 5th grade textbook decision in school, but you are trying to have them influence and be a positive part of that conversation. To teachers and administrators, I have to tell you, it's pretty high on the content and commerce piece, right? So I don't. Again, this is not a, sort of a binary conversation. It's a dimmer switch on these three levers of content, community, commerce, and they're very audience specific, at least through our lens.
Right. I'm going to challenge that a little bit. I'm close to a company based in Toronto called Top Hat Monopole. I don't know if you've heard of them. This is an amazing company. So this is a company that's using community to, I think, disrupt a lot of things in higher education. This is in universities.
Very different market, by the way.
Okay, so you're
Very
just doing in grade school, but I think it's still an interesting. This is a company that's growing like crazy, and so what they do is they make applications for your smartphone that allow you to do quizzes and pop quizzes and all kinds of sort of engagement. There's the word again, engagement in the classroom. What they've done is they sell these applications free to the professor, but the people who pay for it are actually the students. The students go and pay $20 a semester to get access to this, and relative to the textbook budget, it's relatively cheap. But they have a very powerful community of students themselves who actually get excited about learning in this way.
Yep.
And I think they're disrupting the heck out of the Pearsons of the world in higher education, where increasingly I think community content is important.
We had a conversation earlier about open source.
Okay.
Because John worked at Novell, and we do some investing in the open source space. And what's fun is if you look back 15 years ago and you said, I've got really 20 years ago, I've got two potential vectors here. One vector is a company called Microsoft, which at the time is the most powerful consumer computer company in the world, and they're going to hire professional writers and create the most disruptive digital encyclopedia in the universe, and it's going to be unbelievably high quality and unbelievably well distributed.
I have the CDs if you want it.
and then I've got this open source thing called Wikipedia, which is going to be totally crowdsourced and no dollars exchanged, and it's all going to be done by the community. Who's going to win that race? 20 years ago, we would have all said Microsoft.
For sure.
And of course, we all know how history has played out. And I think, and part of this is that when you ignite a community, you don't have to pay them necessarily. You just have to give them a sense of purpose. Yeah. And you don't have to incent them in a crass way. You just have to give them a sense of belonging and a sense of mastery and competence and positive feedback, and the community just lights up. And so I think that's why you get these communities like the Wikipedia community that just light up. If you can create that around your product, you can create a group of evangelists who light up and get excited about sharing content and being evangelists for what you're doing. That's the home run. That's what the community manager does.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I think communities are a very powerful concept for marketers because everybody in the organization thinks that the marketing organization should run the community, and yet that's kind of the opportunity to really get close to the customers and unleash the power of the customers. But there's still this fear. When I talk to a lot of people about losing control, there's still a lot of command and control mentality basically. And so how do your clients, your portfolio companies deal with that?
Well, you eliminate the word control from the conversation. 'Cause it's
Not in lexicon.
if that's your starting point, then you sort of lost from the beginning,
Right.
it seems to me.
Yeah.
Agreed.
One of the big lessons I learned at Microsoft, and I have a couple colleagues here to keep me honest on this, was when we were at Novell, we did this partnership deal with Microsoft. I mean, it's just that we owned a Linux, an open source company, so a lot of people viewed that as selling out to the devil. And then there was a large community response to that. And I made the mistake of trying to control that conversation, and Mark and his team were my advisors at the time. They did not give me this advice.
I was going to say, it was all their fault?
No, it's not their fault. They helped me fix it, by the way. And so I would try to, I assumed that the community was sincere in its intent for wanting a conversation and a balanced viewpoint on the pros and cons of decision making. What I learned was they just wanted a forum to express there's no way to control that, nor should I have attempted to control it. I should have just let it be organic and been authentic and sincere, and we finally turned the page on that, and it became not a negative. It moved from negative to neutral to positive, and it's a tough thing to learn. And we want to control things, and communities are, A, they're not controllable, and B, it's the wrong paradigm, I think. Anyway.
Yeah, you won't get out of
Yeah.
what you won't get the benefit out of it if you're trying to control it, because it needs that organic dimension. So how well do you think marketing technology companies are doing that they're trying to help people create communities? Is it, I mean, the community platforms are you seeing anything in them that's really helping?
I think the idea that there's one monolithic community that can serve all user types is not a good idea. And for companies that are very experienced in community type of marketing, you'll see that they have actually lots of different communities. Salesforce has nine different communities at salesforce.com. And that might sound chaotic to you, but you know, every community has its own flavor, right? So senior executives don't really want to hang out with you know, with users in the same community. It's just not a cool place for executives to hang out. It's just like if you're in a nightclub, there's a VIP section, and then there's another section, and there's all kinds of different things. I think it's the same for communities. And so I think when communities first start to get into building one, it's a very seductive idea to think, I'm going to have this community thing, it's going to be great, it's going to do everything. It's going to reduce my support costs, and it's going to drive advocate behavior, and it's going to get referrals, and we're going to get all this product knowledge, we could, you know, fix our product roadmap and get all this stuff, and we're all going to do it from this one place. And it's just, if you think about that, for a while, it actually doesn't make a lot of sense. So I think that some of the folks that have been in that space for a while, like think about Jive and Lithium and some others that have been in the community space for a while, I mean, they're selling that vision, and I think that they would be better off by being honest, intellectually honest with themselves and with their customers, and say, what we do is we provide a great support community. Zendesk does that. You know, Zendesk doesn't try to be all things to all people. Same as Get Satisfaction. Like, this is what we do, and we do it really, really well, right? And the big benefit that we get is that you get users helping users, and your support costs go way down. And like, I salute that. I think that's
I
great.
couldn't agree more. That is
Yeah.
absolutely the paradigm for technology community, is the service angle and support. Totally agree.
Laura, you touched on something in your question that I want to take a step back on, which is that I think the other big change in marketing organizations, you all are probably feeling this today, there's a presumption about marketing automation, but you know, marketing organizations are absorbing marketing automation still.
I agree.
And marketing organizations are becoming managers of platforms as opposed to managers of campaigns, managers of strategy, managers of communication.
Absolutely right.
You know, you're becoming a platform manager. And so thinking about how an organization evolves, and Mark made the point about it requires different people, different processes. To manage technology platforms requires very different people and processes. And I think a lot of marketing organizations are still evolving to that as well.
Are you saying they should become managers of platforms?
Well, that's...
Because isn't the platform
yeah, that's
isn't the
I think that's
enabling tool to
necessary.
manage a campaign?
I was going to say, I think it's necessary, but not sufficient.
Okay.
So
I misunderstood.
you know,
Okay.
that's what they're doing, and it's a necessary component of the new era of marketing, but it's
okay.
not sufficient to be a great marketing organization. You've got to still have the strategy and the...
Because when we bought Eloqua,
Creative.
and we bought it twice, it was not to self-actualize on Eloqua expertise, it was to execute a better marketing campaign.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
they weren't, I didn't want them to be a manager of a platform, I wanted them to be a better manager of an integrated marketing campaign.
That's right.
Is that fair?
I think that's very fair, yeah.
There's a dynamic though that when a company automates their marketing processes, they, as is natural, they automate what they're doing today. So they're automating the campaign strategy they have today. And a lot of companies still are automating an outbound push kind of strategy with a little bit of nurturing thrown in, which is really just still outbound touch type thing. So I think the strategy part, Jeff, comes in that you now have the opportunity to not just scale what your old engagement model or your old customer model, but to now, because you have the digital capabilities to deal with a more interactive customer approach.
I agree. I think maybe I could say this as founder of Eloqua, but I think this whole marketing automation thing is highly flawed. It really is highly flawed, especially for this environment. It might have made sense in 2004 and 2005, but now I think a lot of marketers are just kind of grasping at straws. I mean, how many of these nurturing emails do you read? Really? Do you really read them? I don't read them anymore. They just annoy me. It's just an automated way to annoy people.
Contextually sensitive way to annoy people.
So
Right.
what's the alternative?
No, well, I think, look,
I'd
as
like to save a lot of
the
money if I
cost,
could, actually, so
well,
I'm all in.
I mean, in the last 5 years, the cost to connect with a highly knowledgeable peer has trended towards zero. It costs you zero. I'll challenge everybody. I'll give you a really tough question in 1 minute. to find me an
LinkedIn.
X, and in 1 minute, you can probably find an expert, right? I found in 3 minutes the world expert to build an influence tracking algorithm. It took me 3 minutes, in LinkedIn, and we connected to the guy, and we're meeting with him and getting help on our algorithm. It's unbelievable, right? So what does the marketing world look like in that environment? So automating people with a bunch of like half-baked content that it's not that well written and whatnot. I mean, how are we going to win in that environment? So I think that's why I think this community thing is so huge. Like the ability to actually go and get knowledgeable peers who know your product and company, and actually go in and get them to go and talk to prospects. Something in there is probably what buyers need today.
I totally
But I wouldn't
agree.
say that it's flawed. I mean, I wouldn't go so far as to say that it's flawed.
Okay, I can say that.
Or that fatal, not fatally flawed. It can be flawed, but not fatally flawed.
I didn't say
where
very flawed. I just said highly flawed.
highly flawed. Okay, life support flawed, but it needs to evolve. I mean, it just that's what I think. I think
Flawed
it's-
doesn't mean useless.
Yeah, it seems to me that the first generation of marketing, B2B marketing automation, sort of grew up to fill a gap between campaigns and CRM, and it filled that gap. But that by
Right.
managing leads in this mid stage.
It filled a gap where people read their emails, people went to corporate websites, they read all the stuff on the websites, and that was really important for buyers. So tracking what buyers did on your website was really important, and actually provided a very useful signal to a sales professional, an inside sales professional, in terms of who to call and when. I don't think that's true anymore. And I think if marketers are being intellectually honest with themselves and their teams, they would say that's not true anymore. That is not the buyer behavior now. They may go to a website very late in their buying process just to confirm what they've heard from their knowledgeable friends at that point. So, yeah, I think things change.
I don't know, Mark. I think obviously you have an agenda relative to your company, which we totally get. But
It's just a passion.
yeah, which is great.
Just a passion.
Which is great. That's what great entrepreneurs do. But I'm a hammer. Everything's a nail. But I think that I'm just giving you a hard time. But the thing that presumes is that the buyer cares enough to ask the friend about the product, and well, how do you learn about the product?
good.
And how
That's
do you
the
investigate?
paradox.
That's the paradox,
agree
right?
with you.
So you need some other awareness at the top of the funnel to be occurring, which I think social and content and classic outbound techniques can help engender.
Point
Yeah,
taken.
buyers aren't the same. They don't have the same needs at every stage in their buying process.
Correct.
So
I
sometimes
don't
they
think
do
we need to
that
read another
foundation.
study to know that peer recommendation is like the #1 influencer of selling decisions, but that doesn't tell you how to Jeff's point.
Right.
How do you get to
How to
that?
generate
How
that.
do you generate that? That's
How
why.
many people in the room have a marketing automation system like a?
Everybody.
That's about what, 20%, a third? Just a,
Like everybody.
Yeah, I think it's more than a third.
How many people actually use it?
have implemented it and let's say and actually use it. So, you think that's everybody? Okay, all right. Okay, I didn't see your hand before. Okay, now it's everybody. So, all right, and how do you just yes or no? Do you feel like it's been very valuable for your company?
Yes.
Okay, why is Mark wrong?
He's not, he's additive,
Uh-huh.
right? You still need to communicate, but
I agree.
people are looking for information and then going to their peers.
Right.
It is additive, and
For validation.
validation. You still go back in emails like, okay, now I need it. Who is that company again? Oh, these guys that have sent me like 50 emails. Okay, I'm gonna go talk to them. And there was good content there, and I was engaged by that content. Oh, for sure. There's value in that.
Social proof matters, right? I mean, social proof really matters.
Leadership matters. Thought leadership matters, right? I do think you got to write really good content now. I don't think you can lose the content war. We hired a full-time journalist. Just hired her today. I think every company should either have a great PR firm like Pan Communications that they work with, or have somebody on staff that is writing great stuff. And it's just, I think we're in an arms race, and it's just one that you can't afford to lose. So I still think that's important, but yeah, social proof matters.
John, how do you measure the benefit you're getting from Eloquent? What kind of, or from your lead management system?
I'm not sure it's that unique or instructive, but I'll tell you, it's the traditional funnel that one would measure on demand generation. So we measure it, and again, my Novo colleagues keep me honest, but we have very qualitative and quantitative measurements around brand health and efficacy, demand generation pipeline, sales enablement, and our product innovation. And on the demand generation, it's just a classic funnel of prospects to qualified prospects to leads to opportunities to close, and then the life cycle to do that. And marketing automation helps with that. So again, not very elegant, but we actually measure that stuff.
What do you want to see? What would you like to see your vendor come out with next to make your marketing perform better? Would it be linking in more community aspects? Would it be better social integration? Would it be better integration with CRM?
I think it's there's plenty of features and functions. To me, it's better ease of use and better integration into the other stuff. I mean, I think innovation is more about business model innovation and usability than it is feature function. So to me, it's that dimension.
Does any of you think that the marketing automation space is going to go sort of like the ERP model, where there will be, there are probably 20 or 30 different point solutions right now that automate the end-to-end marketing process.
But, I don't mean to interrupt, Laura, but in my age, I forget if I don't answer right away. So, to the eloquent point, I don't want to be bound by some 24-year-old who's got deep eloquent skills that they've released. I can't run my eloquent automation. So that's why I care. I want the average marketing professional or just professional to be able to run this system without deep domain expertise, right? And that's true of a lot of automation projects. But why do we need these deep domain specialists who hold us captive to a unique set of skills that are scarce in the marketplace?
Well, it was interesting, Jeff. You said early on that people become platform managers, and I think those 2 points are kind of related. The platform shouldn't be so heavy to manage, because it really should just be something that enables you to do something faster, quicker, more scalable, and so.
You think it's easy to manage?
Do I think it's easy to manage?
Yeah.
No, I think it's horrendous. Sorry.
Did you build that in intentionally?
No, it's not my fault. It really isn't my fault. No, I think the ease of use has come a long way, though. It has, but you still need somebody that has, some real good process skills in order to.
That's fair.
To do truly good integrated campaigns. I mean, it's kind of like parenting. Anybody can be a parent, but like to be a good parent, it's like really hard, right? So I think I think marketing automation, to do it really right, and especially to integrate it really effectively with everything else you do, like with your content strategy. Hopefully, you have an advocate strategy. You're doing something with search and events, whatever. To have it all going, in unison is really tough. And I think that the marketers who are able to do that are the ones that win.
And it might not just be the technology. I mean, it's kind of different kind of process thinking than most marketers. I
agree with that.
It's process thinking in a complex system. You're talking about bringing it all together, and so that's a skill. I mean, again, a skill set that marketers might need to develop. I'll ask you guys too. How many people who are marketers got into marketing because there was not a lot of math? You're not an honest group. Most people raise their hands on that, but I mean, it was the thought stuff, it was the writing stuff, it was the creative stuff, and process thinking. Now to develop an integrated marketing campaign, you need to be a systems thinker. So.
Yeah, as a thinker, and increasingly you're going to have people with a very experimental focus, right? So you're going to start seeing in B2B, you're going to start to see the rise of growth hacker-like units. I don't know what it's going to call in our company. They're called the Optimize team, but they run experiments all day long, right? Trying to poke and prod and provoke and try to learn, right? That's something that has really not been part of the B2B world, I think. I asked my co-founder and CTO at Eloqua, how many experiments have you run since I left? Like none, not a single experiment. I think that's going to change. In the consumer world, in the gaming world, they run like 10 experiments a day. They're constantly getting data about users and customers, and they're practically changing in almost real time. Like they're evolving their product in almost real time based on what they've learned, right? So I think that's yet another skill set. The whole engagement skill set is yet a new one. So I think what's happened is that the CMO becomes kind of like a general with all kinds of different people on their team, right? That I don't think they necessarily have to be great at everything, but they have to understand how the experiment thing works. They got to understand how the engagement thing works and how the process thing works. And know enough about it to go and hire the best people. Mm-hmm. Right? I took 2 weeks off work 4 months ago to go do a deep course in design. Because I found, like, after going through 5 designers, I realized that I was the problem, not the designers. But, you know, these days, like, I think if you don't have some basic design competency, I think you're screwed. Like, I think you have to know how to hire a good designer. I think you have to know how to mobilize them. These days, if you want to be, in my case, even a chief executive, I think you have to understand how to do that. So that's my thing, is like understand different competencies, but you don't necessarily have to have it all wrapped in one person.
So I'll come back to my idea of
Sorry.
no. Actually, it was John who interrupted my question.
Okay.
But no, just do you guys think that the marketing technology is going to evolve into one big integrated SAP-like system, or with SaaS delivery models and different interoperability, we're going to continue to work with a universe of interoperable?
I think we're years and years away from scale consolidation in this space.
Totally
There's
agree.
so much innovation going on, so much innovation.
Not sure
I
you
mean,
even want it.
We haven't even, I think we've gotten a little stuck on marketing automation. We haven't even
Yeah.
talked about multi-channel. We haven't really talked
Right.
about mobile. We haven't really talked about kind of the social fabric and the execution of social-driven campaigns. I mean, there's so much innovation. The challenge is that means there are a lot of point solutions that marketers have to contend with, and you got to pick your battles in terms of what experiments you run with what
Right.
point solutions and what vendors. But the pace of innovation is still extraordinary right now.
But you know what, Jeff, there's a lot of those vendors that are realizing they need to integrate with Marketo and Element
Yes.
out of the box.
True.
Because we're trying to use it as a platform.
Right.
If they
Yeah.
don't, it makes it really difficult.
That's right.
It's just
the
You
way
know,
of
there's a
operationalizing it.
platform war, dynamic,
Right.
emerging, not unlike the platform wars we've seen in other technology industries. I
Right.
agree with that. You're seeing it in the advertising side. I mean, I don't know how many people here deal in the advertising space, but there's a DSP platform war. There's a Google platform war going on. There's all sorts of interesting platform battles going on, and people are trying to plug into the winning platforms. One of my portfolio companies, DataZoo, is a demand-side platform. They've got a very entrenched relationship with a number of big advertisers, including Ford. So I'll have another one of my portfolio companies call me and say, hey, get us on the list to integrate with DataZoo, because we can't get Ford as a customer until we're plugged into DataZoo, because Ford has chosen DataZoo to be their advertising technology platform. So that's a dynamic that's absolutely happening today.
So John, you had said maybe we it wouldn't be a good idea if all things consolidated. Is that because it might stifle innovation, or?
Precisely. Plus, that the stifle innovation, B, it's hard to manage. C, it's traditionally more, complex. It sounds elegant if it's all in one big box, but
Yeah.
to Jeff's point, there's just too much need, too much diversity, too much innovation to trust in SAP or Oracle or anybody like that.
So and then Jeff, to your point, we have talked a lot since we're talking about market automation. That's everybody's head is set around email. But what about some of the other multi-channel? What are you seeing interesting emerging in some other communications and engagement channels?
Yeah, I mean, it's to be multi-channel, you have to have a unified customer view. So you got to start with the customer, and you have to know, when does the customer show up on my website? When did that happen? Is that something you guys talk about?
It's something we enable.
You enable. There you go. Show up on my website. You should be giving this pitch. I don't know why I'm doing it.
You're doing a good job. That's more credible from you.
Excellent. Check. I'm not even an investor. Yeah. Show up on my website. Respond to an email. Come to my mobile site. Call my care center. You sort of all these customer interactions. You've got to have a unified view, and then you've got to adjust your campaigns based on that unified view. And that's the multi-channel vision that everybody's trying to get to.
Yeah.
And it's requires big data. I don't know if this is what you all do, but it requires a big data view. It requires a lot of integration points, and a very sophisticated view. A lot of old companies that went to move to e-commerce, they said, here's my offline team, and here's my traditional organization, and then I'm going to have an online team, and they're going to be siloed. And those silos mean the data's siloed. Well, the customer's not siloed anymore. Customer's checking you out on the phone, logging in, and then showing up at your store in the case of an e-commerce retailer. So you gotta have all that integrated in one single view.
And also maybe the processes. I mean, a lot of larger companies have siloed marketing organizations who are just executing siloed campaigns.
Right.
So it starts, I think, with a mindset.
Right. Did I give you a pitch?
Good job.
Is that it?
Yes,
Yeah? Okay.
that was great.
Good. We'll talk after.
Now, are your customers multi-channel? Are you dealing with them in a multi-channel model, John?
We want them to be. We want to evolve from, selling to teachers, administrators, and school districts to appealing to parents and students and lifelong learners as well. So that requires a multi-channel view.
Okay.
So it's quite a different marketing challenge to market to a parent or a student or a lifelong learner than it is to a school district making a 3,000 student decision on a math textbook. So a whole different set of technologies and processes.
And they're your influence channel, really, yeah.
Yeah, we hope they buy stuff too.
Well, they're buyers now, right?
Buyers too.
Imagine
Okay.
a parent who wants to help their child, prepare for the SATs, or their child struggling in math and they want to buy a $2.99 app on iTunes Store to help them with fractions. And that's our market.
The yellow and black Cliff Notes?
That's us.
Like the Algebra 2 Cliff Notes? I could have used that.
That's
I think,
us.
so.
And you can get it free.
So the on the big data channel, big data thing, the other thing marketing automation gives us, and also web tracking gives us, there's a bunch of data being generated. You mentioned a use case really of using that data to take more informed decisions. There's also some just plain old analytic kind of, analyzing buyer behaviors and seeing patterns. And what are you seeing as interesting in the technologies that are coming out to do that? And what do you think? I guess two questions. And really, what is the biggest challenge going to be for the average marketer to take advantage of this stuff?
Well, I've in the internet space, we've seen personalization evolve, and I think that's becoming more sophisticated. So that's a fun and interesting trend to watch. I think some of these engagement venues, you can measure engagement differently, and you have different value of engagement depending on different channels. And so some of these scoring, influencer scoring, engagement scoring models, I think are quite interesting to watch. But I think people are still trying to figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
It's an evolving target for marketers to understand what's the ROI on some of these incremental investments that they're trying to make, to understand where the engagement's happening and what behaviors to trigger. And the analytics are beginning to inform more precise ROI threads. Depending on this channel, depending on this behavior, I can be very precise about how much money that's worth to me.
I think big data is very disruptive, and we can't even predict how much havoc it's going to wreak in the marketing space. And the reason is when you're able to suck in that much data and analyze it properly, it gets to the point where the machine is much more capable than a human being. So your ability to turn your observe, orient, decide action, you can turn it around so much faster if you have a machine that basically it's in the middle and is able to really turn that crank. It's the same level of disruption that like drones are called, that why probably in 10 years you're probably going to have a lot more drones out there than you are going to have human fighter pilots, and it's because they're able to observe, orient, decide, and act almost instantly, right? And so I see a day where we're going to have a lot of that going on in marketing, right? Where not only are we sucking in all this data from different places, understand what people are doing on websites and our apps and responding to our emails and all that kind of stuff, but then automatically plan the next wave of that campaign dynamically, real time, right? So I don't know what the role of a human marketer is in that world, but I know it's going to change. Hopefully I'll be on the right side of that. I don't know, we'll see.
These same two trends that these guys talk about in terms of personalization and observe, orient, decide, and track, that's the promise of technology in the education space. So you hear about
Personalized learning.
To personalized learning, not to
Yeah.
a class of 25, but to a class of 1, and how he learns and decides is different than how Jeff does and I do. And technology's promise is in providing customized content to observe, orient, decide, and track, and give a student. So it's the same exact sort of
Same model,
paradigm.
same exact, model. I'm going to open it up. Anybody have any questions? This dialogue has spurred you? Are you guys wrestling with these issues? Yeah?
We have everyone spellbound.
Thinking about
No, they just know the Bruins are on at 8 o'clock. Oh, did I say that? I'm sorry.
I have just a comment. I work in a location-based mobile advertising tech company, and we work with not just big data, but viewership data from phones. And
Which
when
company is it?
Sense Networks.
Yeah.
So when we try and sell our capabilities into brands and agencies, we're just seeing we're on the rise. Year of mobile, maybe it's here this year, but like it's still challenging. So challenging for brand owners to really buy in and spend and believe. And there are, we can deliver the goods, but there's also challenges connecting to, other online data and, shopper data. So it just seems like there's this completely, consistently unraveling ball of yarn where we can get some data and mobile and connect it, but can you connect it to shopper data and online data? And I guess my question is there any way to get in front of all this? Probably not, but.
I mean, I'd try to simplify the conversation if I were in your shoes, because when you describe it, it seems very complex and intimidating.
Mm-hmm.
And so, just from my seat, if someone approached me with that kind of conversation, knowing the skill sets I have on the team, I'd be intimidated, and that'd be a tomorrow conversation for me.
Yeah.
Part of the way I have to, I hired a PhD in statistics who's on my marketing team.
Mhm.
So she lives in that world, and that she completely groks it and understands it. But she knows enough about marketing, I think, she knows what her role is. And I think in the future, a lot of marketing departments are going to have PhDs in statistics like her, and that they're going to have there's a place for her. But there's also a place for the engagement expert who's highly emotive, highly right-brained, high-feeling kind of person. And I think that they're just as important as the PhD in statistics. And in the future, I think our task is how do we get all these people to work together in a really effective team, have empathy for each other's positions and skills. I'm excited about it.
But I think, John, you raised a really good point with the way your reaction to that really cool technology, in that the technology can't get ahead of what the buyer can absorb.
Right.
And so if you're taking the concept of being totally buyer-centric and thinking about the buyer's needs, you don't need to be presenting the whole value proposition that you can do, because it's only, you need to apply to what they can do this year, and which is one of the 2 or 3 problems they're going to solve this year, not one of the 2 or 3 problems they're going to solve over the next 10 years.
Yeah,
So.
and I do.
Yeah.
But then it just oftentimes there's so many challenges
Mhm.
that
Yeah.
marketers
Yeah.
Yep.
that they're grappling with.
Yeah.
And we're making traction and,
Yeah.
helping solve what we can. But it's just interesting because it doesn't end
Right.
with our solution. It's all integrated.
Right.
The whole journey.
It doesn't end. But the good news is it's becoming more and more important to the chief executive. It won't be long before the CMO, CFO, same level, right? It's becoming, I think it's gone from a position where it was a bit of a junior role around the executive team to now it's absolutely the person who drives the number, right? To your point, like Jeff, before when I was behind the number, right? Even at Eloqua, even though we were really marketing centric, first call really was to head of sales saying, how do you get me another $1 million? Now it's to marketing. That person's actually better at getting me $1 million
Right.
than the head of
Right.
sales. Yeah, I think that's a big
Predictably, right.
So maybe you could tell us from when you speak of the funnel that all of us are familiar with, what influences your customer most in that funnel? I've heard you talk about thought leadership. I've heard you talk a little bit about social media, various activities like that. What are you hearing and feeling in this marketing space is having the biggest impact on your customer?
Yeah, I think it's an amazing question, and a really smart VC asked me that question in 2005, and it changed my life. Talking to all my customers and asked them why they bought, how they bought, mapped it out, mapped it in a flow chart, all the conversations they had to have in order to go and buy. And what I learned and why I started my new company was, peer recommendations were super important, number one, and I think that's still true today. So I think the content is important, but even then, content delivered by peers is way more effective than content delivered by your emails. Right? So even I really believe in content marketing. Like I don't mean to disparage it at all. Like, it is important. but you got to think about the vehicle, by how it's best delivered. And so our goal at our company is to make sure that we do as little speaking as possible. Like we do stuff like this, but we want our army of people doing all the speaking for us, right? And so I think you look at, if you look at your buying process, your customer's buying process, everybody here looks at your buying process. You ask your customers when you win them, what was most influential for you in your decision to purchase our product? Or even ask your sales reps to ask people, what was most influential for you in you granting me this meeting?
Yeah.
You'll be amazed at how much, well, I talked to da-da-da-da, and they heard you were good, so I granted you this meeting, Mr. Salesperson.
But I think the core of what you're saying there, I mean, the heart of it,
Yeah.
before we get to the advocacy
Yeah.
push.
No, I'm not just talking my book.
know.
I mean, I'm really passionate with
No,
it.
but is thinking about, you said you sat down and you mapped your buyer's process. And that
Yeah.
starts with, how did they learn about us in the first place?
Yep.
Where were they looking to find new ideas? What events and trade shows did they go to, or
Yep.
whatever? Then, how do they evaluate us and vet us against other options? How do they make their final decision? And I mean, there's content, advocacy, social, they all play a different
Mm-hmm.
role, but it all starts with that understanding your buyer's journey.
There's
process.
there's nothing more important, and I'm amazed to the extent that most marketing leaders have not done this work at all.
I
Amazing.
agree with that. It's amazing and it's not done.
Hasn't it become that much more complex though now with everything digitally related? I mean, you know, what's your opinions on that kind of CMO, CDO, CMDO, and kind of where that whole model is moving based on the ability to engage with the customer in real time in the digital world?
What's the CMDO?
Chief Marketing Digital Officer, Chief Digital Officer, CMO. I mean, you know, there's this whole kind of rise now on what's it look like? What's the departments look like in the next year, 2 years? And the skill set's outsourced right now. At what point does it become more viable to bring it in and kind of working either at a dual function or as one? Are you seeing that right now? And
Yeah, I don't in the B2B space, I'm not seeing chief digital officers yet. I see it a lot in media. So like your publishers, have them, right? A lot. I don't know what you've seen, but
Yep.
B2B, I still see, often there's a CMO now. A lot of companies have a CMO or an SVP of marketing. And then there's a head of demand gen, typically, some kind of head of reputational stuff, content and PR, and it has a bunch of different titles, associated with it. And usually there's a product, some kind of product and field marketing in there. That's your typical B2B marketing organization, what I've seen. But so chief digital officer is kind of interesting. So you've probably seen them in some of your companies, right?
No, everybody's,
Yeah.
it's digital savvy CMOs.
Okay.
Really what it has to become.
Right.
Just understanding all the different channels and capabilities
just-
and
right,
data
right.
is, so is the biggest marketing skill gap at the CMO level?
As a venture capitalist, you always invest in leaders,
Uh-huh.
and it begins at the top. So that's a big issue for sure.
Yeah. I'll take that one. This one I have a better chance of catching. Right, so,
That's a good question.
yeah.
Where's the biggest skill gap? I don't know. It's interesting.
I
Think
mean,
about it.
one thing that that I always think about is that marketing is now, I've been a B2B marketer my whole career, and aside from the last 2 when I've been an analyst, and I always say that it feels like for the first time I've really got the tools are out there that could help me do the kind of job I wanted to do. And I also remarked earlier that there's, that in technology companies and in many B2B companies, there's engineering, product, and then there's sales. And I'm interested in what you guys see about, and John, I'll start with you, but I mean, with all the capabilities that we have now, I mean, do you think that marketing stature in the company will change dramatically over the next decade?
This marketing stature complex, I've never quite understood.
I agree.
I think marketers get what they deserve. So if you come in and you don't want to measure shit and you're all about fonts and colors, and then you deserve the reputation you get. If you
Right.
want to talk about how to measure marketing ROI and hold yourself accountable to
Driving
measurements,
sales.
then you get
Right.
that. Then you
Right.
get that.
Exactly.
So this complex about, we're not, I don't, look, I inherited that when I got to Novell 7, 8 years ago when I got there, it was a classic master-slave relationship, and frankly, it was deserved between marketing and sales because the marketing people just did whatever the salespeople told them to do, and they never measured anything. So you get what you deserve, right?
So take command
So
of
if
your
you
own
want
destiny,
to
yeah.
cowboy up and, you know, measure yourself and hold yourself accountable and take a number, then you'll sit at the table
Yeah.
with the big people. Right?
Don't you
Yeah.
think marketers today talk more about lead generation?
Well, lead generation is fine, and that's an adult conversation. But you have to measure it, and you have to have yourself accountable for what percent you're going to do. There's a science to it. You know, it's the same thing about brand efficacy. We got to Novell, and they would have a bunch of sales reps who were ill-informed about no one knows Novell and our brand sucks. Like, okay, let's measure that. Let's have a fact-based conversation around what is our awareness in the marketplace, what is our purchase consideration, what do people think about us, what are our strengths and weaknesses. Then we can have a fact-based conversation versus the how to conjugate the verb to suck.
Yeah,
You know, I
my
mean,
last sales call. Right.
So, I just think you get the reputation you deserve on these kind of things.
Yeah.
I think that's a good call. That's a good call to arms, call to
Yeah.
action. I will defend my position a little bit by saying you now have the data to measure it, the capability to measure it, and so that's why I think it's kind of an exciting bit. But yeah, you got to step up to the table and change the what you're willing to step up to committing.
Well, it makes the conversation more transparent, and to people who aren't very confident, that's a scary place to be.
Yep.
It's much easier to hide behind the obfuscation of the art of
Good
marketing.
creative, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was wondering, just with in the marketing automation space, as we're moving beyond like kind of the early adopters, the tech industry, into more of the early majority, is this revenue accountability that everybody's promising going to scare people off? You know, and then they say, well, I'll put that off because I'm not so sure my team can do that. And so there might be a little slowdown in the marketplace.
That's probably a good way to normalize the conversation and function.
Yeah.
If it scares it off, then that's probably
Yeah.
a healthy thing.
Any further, I think we're getting near the end of our time here. Any further questions of?
So, I mean, a lot of the conversations today I have, marketers are around what are we going to do, right? Is it the trade-offs of advocacy, or the trade-off of more social, or more automation, right? There's a whole lot of debates about what we're doing. But the thing I wonder about, Mark, you hit on, you talking a little bit about growth hacking. The thing that I don't see a lot of conversations is the how we're going to manage marketing and how we're going to do marketing different. Not in terms of the programs we run, but in the way we manage our marketing teams. There've been conversations about how we organize our teams, but I'm wondering what it's going to take for the cultural shift to set into marketing. So things like growth hacking and lean, and agile, and all the things that maybe a lot of the technology guys are commonplace and sort of standard operating procedure are going to become much more prominent in marketing teams in what companies today.
Yeah, I think you're going to see some marketing organizations that are built like that, and they're going to do really, really well. I think others are going to emulate them.
I would just add, Frank, that I actually would start with neither the what nor the how.
Yeah.
I think we got to start with the why,
Yeah.
right? And most traditional marketing firms are the what, the how, and then the why. And it turns out the customers care about the inverse of that equation. They care. You got to first care about the why, and then move to the what and how. I think.
And I would throw out, you got to focus on the who.
Yeah,
Just to
fair enough.
complete the W
Fair
picture.
enough.
Because again, as I was saying earlier,
Yep.
as investors, you always focus on the who, and leadership begins at the top. The challenges for marketing leaders have changed, and so the nature of who that marketing leader is going to be and what they're skilled at and what their background experience is, that needs to change as well.
No, I like your point on the why. I mean, it doesn't make sense to go and try all these different tactics, and the growth hacking thing is another tactic, and so is community and all that kind of thing. It's got to be directed at, some deep understanding of what it is that, your customers and buyers really want. Right? So I still think that old-fashioned, calling on customers, mapping out the buying process, understand not what they say they want, but what they really want. And there's a difference between what people say they want and what they actually need, right? So I still think marketers need to be in that business, and that's not necessarily technologically enabled at all. It's shoe leather. That's what I was doing today. I was going talking to customers, asking them, how do we make more money for you? Like, where's the value? And so I still think you got to go and do that. But once you understand that, Like, for example, we understand at our business that our business lives and dies entirely by the advocate experience. Not our customers, not the people who pay us, but the people that they'll go and motivate. So we build our whole growth hacking unit as a way to go and figure out the better experience for the advocate that they're going to enjoy more. So I think it starts with the why, and then it's like, okay, what are the tactics that we can do in order to go and, nail the why for the who? Good. All right, go Bruins.
Yeah, so if there's a takeaway.
From a Canadian guy, no?
Well, no, now that you beat the Leafs,
Now the Leafs are-
now they're out. I can